The story then continues with Jinwoo sleeping in late only to be jolted awake by a call from Gina. Hearing his groggy voice, Gina immediately knows he's still in bed and asks if he even realizes what time it is. Glancing at the clock, Jinwoo notices it's already 2 in the afternoon, so Gina quickly reminds him that her parent-teacher meeting is today. Later, Jinwoo arrives at the meeting looking surprisingly well-dressed. Gina is stunned by how dashing he appears, prompting Jinwoo to wonder if something's wrong, but Gina reassures him it's not that, it's just unexpected. He then explains that he just had to dress appropriately since showing up in sportswear wouldn't be suitable. Gina muses about how much people can change, and as they walk through the school halls, Jinwoo garners attention from the girls around, leaving them whispering in curiosity. Gina, noticing this, teases him about not having a girlfriend yet, offering to introduce him to someone, but he angrily dismisses the idea. Later, Jinwoo meets with Gina's teacher, who is full of praise for her. The teacher describes Gina as an exemplary student and role model, noting her strong performance in mock exams. Confident that Gina can get into medical college, she advises Jinwoo not to pressure her too much, and Jinwoo agrees. But before the meeting concludes, the teacher asks Jinwoo what he would do if Gina awakened and wanted to become a hunter. Jinwoo's response is immediate and firm that he wouldn't allow it. The teacher expected such an answer and mentions she has a favorite ask. The story then transitions to Jinwoo meeting Song-yi, who is surprised to see him. Jinwoo reveals he is Gina's brother, and Song-yi quickly pieces together that the teacher must have sent him to convince her to quit being a hunter. She defiantly refuses, saying she won't quit or return to school. Jinwoo points out that as an E-rank hunter, she won't have many opportunities to earn money. And while she may have made good money as part of his assault team, that was an exception. Song-yi frustratedly tells him to leave if all he plans to do is lecture her. And she even throws his rank back at him, reminding him he's also E-rank. Jinwoo then calmly states that he's not here to lecture or convince her to quit. Instead, he asks her to follow him. Elsewhere, Jinchul greets Dong-soo upon his arrival in Japan, surprising Dong-soo with a personal reception. Dong-soo sarcastically notes that the chief of the Hunter Association himself has come to welcome him, but Jinchul wastes no time and directly asks how long Dong-soo plans to stay. Dong-soo reassures him not to worry as he won't be around for long. Jinchul, however, is skeptical, noting that Dong-soo has returned to the very country he betrayed, ostensibly just to meet 2 specific individuals. Dong-soo smirks, confident that Jinchul knows the truth. His visit isn't just to see them. And he eerily suggests the surveillance team should turn a blind eye to whatever happens to those 2 in a dungeon, revealing his intent to eliminate Jinwoo first and then Leo. And he confidently remarks that Jinchul's abilities won't be enough to stop him, and Jinchul simply responds that he is just doing his duty. Elsewhere, we see some monsters being unloaded from the chopper that Guild Master Choi and the others took from near Jojo Island, and then Choi briefs the chairman of the Hunter Association on the situation. He explains that the monsters have been attempting to cross the sea to reach the mainland but couldn't sustain flight and fell into the water. Choi then warns that if left unchecked, these creatures might one day succeed in crossing over, but Gunny promises to do whatever it takes to prevent that from happening. The scene then cuts to Jinwoo, who meets up with Sang. Sang, surprised by the unexpected call, comments on how rare it is to hear from Jinwoo and notices Song-yi is with him. Jinwoo then apologizes for the sudden request, but Sang assures him it's fine, though he's curious about Jinwoo's interest in observing their training. Sang then points to a nearby gate, explaining that it's a level C gate that just appeared recently. As they talk, an impatient man interrupts, grumbling that they should start the raid already since this isn't a picnic. Jinwoo glances at him curiously, and Sang introduces him as Kim Chul, an A-rank hunter with the role of a tanker. Sang adds that Kim Chul is the leader of the assault team, and it's clear that Kim Chul is annoyed about having E-rank hunters tagging along to watch his raid. Kim Chul's displeasure is obvious, and Sang tries to smooth things over by explaining the team composition to Jinwoo. The raid consists of 1 rank A hunter, 5 rank Bs, and 2 rank Cs, making a total of 10 people, including Jinwoo and Song-yi. Jinwoo isn't thrilled about the large group since his main purpose was to show Song-yi the harsh realities of dungeon raids, but with so many participants it might dilute the experience. Sang's assistant then advises Jinwoo to stay on the sidelines and let the newcomers gain practical experience, and Jinwoo agrees. The team then enters the gate, but Jinwoo immediately senses something off, and he notices the gate behind him behaving strangely as it begins to glow red. He then realizes what's happening and tries to escape, managing to squeeze his head out to warn Sang to contact the assault team. But then the gate pulls him back inside again. Sang then quickly contacts Baek, informing him of the red gate, and Baek immediately sets out to assist. Inside, Jinwoo and the team find themselves in an endless snowfield, stunned to discover that the gate has completely vanished, so panic sets in as they wonder how they'll escape. Kim Chol then steps forward and explains that they're trapped inside a red gate. Song-yi confusedly asks what that means, so Jinwoo calmly explains that unlike normal gates, a red gate is a dungeon where all contact with the outside world is lost upon entry, and to escape they must either defeat the boss or wait for the dungeon to collapse, and adds that the outside world cannot interfere, and the dungeon will be crawling with dangerous magical beasts. Suddenly, arrows rain down on the group. One hunter is killed instantly, but Jinwoo quickly catches the second arrow that is aimed at Song-yi and shields her from harm. The girl is stunned by his reflexes, and the team realizes they are surrounded by ice elves. Jinwoo then notes that their distance had masked their presence, and he sees they targeted the group's weakest members. And he acknowledges that if this had happened 2 months ago, he wouldn't have survived. The ice elves then retreat, leaving Song-yi confused, so Jinwoo explains that ice elves are ruthless predators known as ice slayers among hunters, feared for their brutal efficiency. Kim Chol then takes charge, announcing that no help will be coming in this place and insists they follow his commands if they want to survive. He then claims that he can't manage the entire group, so he proposes splitting into 2 teams, arguing this will improve their chances. He warns that staying in one place risks freezing to death and insists he can protect those who go with him. Most of the group agrees to go with Kim Chol, but he quickly singles out the weaker members, refusing to take them along, and he explains that their presence would slow the team down. He then states that 1 day in this dungeon equals an hour outside, and it could take months to defeat the boss or wait for the dungeon to collapse. And with a cold, dismissive tone, he labels them as dead weight, so he is going to leave them, but he promises to come back for them once the boss is defeated. One girl in the group decides to stick with Jinwoo, and Kim Chol thinks that's a stupid move, but she is sure that Kim Chol didn't notice the arrow earlier and quietly whispers to Jinwoo that she noticed his earlier reflexes, convinced he's much stronger than he seems, and she thinks that he is even a rank or even higher, but Jinwoo doesn't confirm or deny it. Kim Chol then declares he'll take the main road, assuming it's the best route, so Jinwoo offers to lead his team through the forest. After some time, Kim Chol's group notices claw marks on the trees, so he confidently declares that they've entered Ice Bear territory and smugly remarks that the E-rank team will likely be killed. Soon after, they sense ice bears nearby, and the group quickly finds themselves surrounded. One of the massive creatures charges, but Kim Chol blocks the attack with his shield and cleaves the bear in half with his axe. And without hesitation, he moves to engage the other 2 bears, maintaining his confidence. Meanwhile, Jinwoo's group is stopped by the girl, who points out similar claw marks. She warns them that they're in ice bear territory and suggests they turn back to avoid an encounter. Jinwoo disagrees, suggesting instead that they press deeper. He explains that since this is ice bear territory, they'll only need to worry about the bears, which are weaker than the elves that wait outside. The girl thinks it over and realizes Jinwoo is right. No other magic beasts would enter this area because of the bear's dominance. As they move forward, the air grows colder, so Jinwoo pulls coats from his inventory using subspace magic, handing them out to everyone. The group is amazed at his ability, putting on the warm coats with gratitude. But Song-yi is still puzzled, asks Jinwoo who he really is. Jinwoo avoids the question, reminding her that he brought her here so it's his responsibility to protect her, but he requests that she and the others not ask further questions. Just then, a massive ice bear emerges from the shadows, so Jinwoo steps forward and changes his title to Wolf Assassin as he prepares for the fight. Meanwhile, outside the gate, Baek observes the ominous red glow and concludes that this gate is bad news, and he doubts that anyone but high-ranking hunters could survive. He then places his hopes on Kim Chol, believing his rank might give the assault team a chance. But Sag informs him that in addition to the official assault team, others entered the gate, including Jinwoo. Baek then curiously asks Jinwoo's rank, and Sang replies that Jinwoo is officially E-rank, though he suspects he may have reawakened, though Jinwoo has never confirmed it. Baek isn't optimistic about Jinwoo's chances, but then Dongsu arrives with Jinchul. Baek is visibly displeased to see Dongsu, questioning why he's here when he's supposed to be in America. Dongsu ignores the question and instead challenges Baek, asking why an E-rank hunter was allowed into the gate when he isn't even part of their guild. Dongsu makes it clear he's referring to Jinwoo, leaving Baek wondering how Dongsu knows him. Dongsu scoffs at the red gate, lamenting that Jinwoo will likely die inside before he gets the chance to meet him. Jinchul, observing Dongsu's frustration, muses that Jinwoo is fortunate to be inside the gate, sparing him a confrontation with Dongsu. However, Jinchul doubts Jinwoo's chances of making it out alive. Inside the gate, Jinwoo finishes off the last of the ice bears, earning another level up. His team and the girl are left stunned and wondering who he is, but he remains tight-lipped. Later, the group gathers to eat roasted bear meat, and they are astonished that Jinwoo managed to take down so many bears alone. The girl warns that they can't afford to relax just yet, as the lair of the monsters must be nearby. Song-yi, on the other hand, is baffled by Jinwoo's behavior, questioning why Jinwoo has gone out for exercise after dinner, even though he just fought such an intense battle. So she remarks on how strange he is, and the others agree. Elsewhere, we see Jinwoo standing outside the lair of the ice bears, ready to test his shadow army. He summons them, watching as they charge forward. The shadows easily cut down the bears, but some of the creatures fight back fiercely, managing to rip apart parts of his army. However, the shadows regenerate quickly using Jinwoo's mana and return to the fight. Then we see that the mages in his army provide excellent support, and Jinwoo is impressed, thinking they perform better than expected, but he notes that maintaining them uses a lot of mana. Suddenly, the massive boss of the ice bears emerges, and with a single devastating attack, it wipes out Jinwoo's entire shadow army, draining a significant amount of his mana in the process. Left unable to regenerate his soldiers, Jinwoo summons Igris. The Shadow Knight steps forward confidently, so the bear charges at him, but Igris dodges with ease, delivering a precise slash, and in moments, the bear is brought to its knees. It attempts a final desperate attack, but Igris finishes it with a swift beheading. Jinwoo observes, impressed by Igris' power. Reflecting on their earlier duel, he admits that he wouldn't have lost if Igris had used his sword. Even now at his current level, Jinwoo believes Igris might still be stronger, and then he praises Igris for handling the fight so well. Meanwhile, Kim Chol's party faces the elves, and we see that all of his teammates have been killed, leaving him alone struggling to process what the hell just happened. He bitterly reflects on how close he was to becoming an elite member of the White Tiger Guild, only to end up in this dire situation. The sight of the elves and the remaining survivors terrifies him, and he realizes he has no chance of winning, so he runs as fast as he can to escape. Then we see Jinwoo stands victorious over the Death Bears, showcasing his immense power as a necromancer. With a simple command to rise, shadow bears emerge from the corpses, seamlessly joining Jinwoo's ever-growing shadow army. Outside the portal, Sang explains that the strike force has been trapped inside for 3 hours, which translates to about 3 days in the portal's distorted time. Red gates are notoriously dangerous, so Dong-su concludes that Jinwoo must already be dead and begins preparing to leave. However, Dong-su halts his departure, demanding to know why Jinwoo was associating with the White Tiger Guild in the first place. Sang casually explains that Jinwoo is merely an acquaintance who wanted to observe a C-rank mission. Then, while Sang feels relieved that this answer should suffice, Dong-su shocks everyone by suddenly choking Sang. Dong-su isn't fooled, he knows Sang has a talent for identifying promising new hunters. At that moment, Baek steps forward, transforming as he tells Dong-su to stop. This only enrages Dong-su further, who dismisses Bak as nothing more than a big fish in a small pond. The two S-rank hunters then release some of their power, sending waves of terror through those nearby. Sang grows increasingly alarmed, fearing that an S-rank battle could devastate the entire area. But despite this, the tension escalates, and the two hunters clash. Inside the portal, Kim Chol feels relieved after escaping the elves, but his relief turns to horror when he stumbles upon the mangled corpses of the Death Bears. The sight terrifies him, and he begins to wonder how the E-ranks he abandoned could possibly be responsible for such devastation. The sheer destruction leaves him trembling, so he suspects that the ice layers might be the true culprits and quickly retreats into the forest. Outside the gate, Dong-su is impressed when Jinchul intervenes, managing to stop the escalating S-rank fight, so Jinchul humbly admits that the only reason his arms remain intact is that the two S-rank hunters restrained themselves at the last moment. Jinchul then reassures Dong-su that Jinwoo is just an E-rank hunter, emphasizing that he reevaluated Jinwoo 2 months ago and found no reason to believe otherwise. Additionally, Jinchul explains that the surveillance team's investigation into your brother's death revealed it was caused by a magic beast. Dong-su dismisses this as a convenient public cover-up, convinced that if Jinwoo isn't the culprit, then the killer must be the wealthy Leo. Jinchul then questions why Dong-su is targeting Jinwoo if he believes he isn't the killer, but Dong-su's reply is cold and blunt. It's an excuse to kill. But before the conversation can continue, Dong-su is called away, muttering that Jinwoo is lucky. Sang watches him leave and reflects on how no one truly grasps the depth of Jinwoo's power the way he does. Confident in Jinwoo's strength, Sang believes he will survive the Red Gate. Inside the gate, Jinwoo's group sits around a fire, trying to stay warm. But their moment of peace is shattered when Kim Chol storms in, furious to see these weaklings alive and thriving. Dressed in weather gear and surrounded by blankets and food, they're clearly in much better shape than his own group. So Kim Chol gets enraged and accuses them of hoarding supplies, claiming his team died because they lacked proper equipment. Blinded by anger, he demands to know who was hiding all the gear and blames Park, suspecting she joined the weaker group because she knew the truth. Kim Chol then issues an ultimatum, counting down from 3 and threatening to eliminate them all if the culprit doesn't confess. And when no one speaks up, he screams Jinwoo's name, assuming him to be responsible and prepares to attack. However, before Kim Chul can act, Jinwoo suddenly appears and utterly overpowers him. The group is stunned by their leader's unexpected return, and Jinwoo admonishes Kim Chul for blaming others for his party's failure. Jinwoo also senses something more sinister nearby and accuses Kim Chul of dragging even greater trouble into their midst. Turning his attention to the surroundings, Jinwoo calls out to the hidden presence, stating that their aura is far too strong to go unnoticed, and he orders them to drop their stealth. In response, the Ice Elves reveal themselves, their leader remarking in disdain that one of the human scum is unexpectedly strong. Jinwoo retorts sharply, shocking everyone as he speaks fluently in the language of the magic beasts. Even Jinwoo is surprised by this ability, quickly deducing that his cheat system must be responsible. The elven leader then begins to explain their presence, revealing that one of his men sensed Jinwoo's immense power when he stopped the arrow, so the elf wanted to challenge Jinwoo to a fight. However, before the leader can finish speaking, Jinwoo swiftly chops off the challenger's head. The leader is amused by this display of brutality, but Jinwoo is uninterested in entertaining him and immediately launches an attack. The leader defends himself skillfully, and Jinwoo quickly realizes that this opponent won't go down easily. The leader, still amused, remarks that Jinwoo isn't human, questions why he's pretending to be. Jinwoo is confused by the comment, but the leader's laugh makes it clear that he knows something Jinwoo doesn't. He explains that elves are driven by a voice in their minds commanding them to kill humans, but strangely, they don't hear it when it comes to Jinwoo. This revelation makes Jinwoo suspicious, wondering if the elves' silence toward him is connected to his system directives. The leader speculates that Jinwoo might not be entirely human and encourages him to sensibly hand over the other humans. But Jinwoo demands to know why the elves are targeting humans at all. As the leader begins to answer, something bizarre occurs. His body glitches and he repeats himself as if stuck in a loop. However, Jinwoo refuses to comply, and the leader warns that defiance would make Jinwoo their enemy and reminds him that they vastly outnumber him. But Jinwoo is undeterred and questions why the leader is so confident. And with that, Jinwoo summons his shadow army, leaving the others to look on in disbelief, wondering how such a thing is even possible. The elven leader then dismisses Jinwoo's forces as a waste of time, but Jinwoo ignores his words and presses for a fight. The leader obliges, and the two sides engage in a brutal battle. The humans with Jinwoo attempt to flee, but elven archers target them. Jinwoo demonstrates his incredible skill, eliminating the archers with ease. But despite his prowess, Jinwoo begins to understand the leader's confidence. The elves are stronger than he anticipated and are dealing significant damage. While Jinwoo's shadow army is technically immortal, regenerating his troops costs magic power. Though Jinwoo possesses a considerable reserve, it isn't infinite, and he realizes it could eventually run out, and even worse, he concludes that the elven leader is undeniably stronger than him. The leader engages Jinwoo directly, and Jinwoo quickly evaluates the situation, realizing that even with Igris fighting beside him, Barca remains an overwhelming opponent. The odds are against him, and his regular soldiers won't suffice, so Jinwoo concludes he needs a stronger force to match the leader's power. The leader then formally introduces himself as Barca, and Jinwoo returns the gesture. The two warriors charge of each other with ferocity, and Barca immediately displays his dominance. However, he's momentarily stunned when Jinwoo teleports his blade to his opposite hand mid-attack. Their exchange continues with narrow misses on both sides, but Jinwoo eventually gets pushed back. Barca expresses delight at the challenge, stating he hasn't enjoyed a fight like this in years. Jinwoo, smiling back, unleashes a massive meteor that crashes down onto Barca, catching him off guard. Meanwhile, Kim Chul regains consciousness, seething with anger. Seething with hatred, he curses Jinwoo again and grips his sword tightly, determined to take him down. Then, as Barca battles Jinwoo's magic soldiers, Kim Chul uses the chaos to make his move. However, Jinwoo, having anticipated this, orders Igris to create a dense smokescreen. Using the cover, Igris swiftly ends Kim Chul's life. Realizing too late that Jinwoo had planned this all along, Kim Chul succumbs to his last thoughts filled with regret. With Kim Chul's defeat, Jinwoo commands him to rise, and a radiant light erupts from his body as he is reborn as a shadow soldier. Barca, still charging at Jinwoo, mocks the notion that hiding will save him. But his confidence is shaken when a towering new shadow soldier emerges to confront him, forcing Barca to retreat momentarily. Jinwoo then names his newest member Iron, and the resurrected Kim Chul lets out a deafening scream. Barca assesses Iron, quickly noting after a few seconds of battle that the soldier lacks agility but possesses immense durability. Nearby, Songyi watches in disbelief, wondering if all hunter battles are this intense. Her companions assure her that this battle is far beyond anything they've seen before. Then, while Iron holds his ground, Barca declares the fight lacks challenge and demands that Jinwoo and Igris join the fray. Jinwoo accepts Barca's challenge with a smirk, and the intense 3-on-1 battle begins. Barca's overwhelming strength is on full display as he fends off Jinwoo, Igris, and Iron simultaneously. However, his frustration grows as Iron's persistent screams echo throughout the fight. So Barca decides Iron must be dealt with first, but Iron proves to be a formidable tank, enduring every blow. Barca's confidence grows as he dodges Igris' strikes, but he's caught off guard when Jinwoo lands a stab. Jinwoo is so impressed because Barca avoids a fatal wound even amidst the chaos. Barca then bristles at being underestimated, but Jinwoo commends him for surviving this long. Then as the fight rages on, Jinwoo takes a moment to turn his attention to the rest of his clan. Barca, suddenly remembering his army, turns to see a horrifying sight. Jinwoo's shadow army has wiped out his entire clan. But despite the grim sight, Barca remains confident, certain that taking out Jinwoo will be enough to turn the tide. As Jinwoo throws his dagger, Barca mocks him, calling him a fool for discarding his weapon. However, he underestimates Jinwoo, who recalls the dagger with pinpoint accuracy. Barca barely blocks it, but his weapon is destroyed in the process. Jinwoo then seizes the moment, ordering Iron to restrain Barca. Immobilized, Barca becomes the target of an immense fire attack unleashed by Jinwoo's magic soldiers. But despite the devastating strike, Barca isn't finished. He cuts through Iron and vows to annihilate the humans, but Jinwoo counters, silencing him once and for all. Jinwoo declares the battle over, but Barca, defiant to the end, insists it's not finished until he says so. His defiance is short-lived as Iron regenerates and crushes him completely. So Jinwoo reiterates that the battle is indeed over, as Barca lies lifeless on the ground. The ground then begins to tremble, but it's actually merely Iron ensuring their victory is absolute. Jinwoo reprimands Iron, reminding him to show restraint, and silently hopes this behavior won't become a recurring issue. The group then breathes a collective sigh of relief, astonished as Jinwoo calmly tells them it's time to leave. They all feel relieved to leave, but before that, Jinwoo takes one final look at Barca's lifeless body. Outside the portal, Sang tells Baek it's time to return home as a week has passed inside and the chances of survival seem slim. But Baek refuses to leave, unwilling to abandon his guild members. Then both men are stunned when the portal begins to open and Baek confidently assumes it's Kim Chul emerging, certain his guild member managed to succeed. However, both are shocked when the figure stepping out isn't Kim Chul but Jinwoo, alive and unscathed. Sang's confidence proves correct and Jinwoo stands as the undeniable victor. The gate then closes and Baek is left wondering about Kim Chul's fate, and when he learns that only the low-ranked hunter survived, he is horrified and deeply curious about what transpired inside. Baek then approaches Jinwoo for answers, but Jinwoo, visibly exhausted, tells him to direct his questions to someone in his guild. Baek is taken aback, interpreting this as defiance, and he is stunned by the audacity. As Jinwoo wasn't asking, he was ordering, and Warsik could even be taken as a threat. Tensions rise as Baek grows more serious, emphasizing that 6 of his guild members are missing, making it his duty to find out what happened. Jinwoo, unfazed by the intimidation, calmly points out that he was the one who saved the 2 surviving members, which means Baek should be showing him gratitude instead. Baek takes a moment to cool down, realizing Jinwoo is right and apologizes for his earlier demeanor. Then, with the situation diffused, Jinwoo takes Songyi home. After Jinwoo departs, Baek turns to Park, asking about Jinwoo and why he seems so angry. Park explains that Jinwoo's mood only changed after defeating the boss. Sang suggests that it must be due to exhaustion, noting that Jinwoo is usually a kind person. Then, of course, Baek gets intrigued and instructs Sang to do whatever it takes to recruit Jinwoo into their guild. Later, Jinwoo drops off Songyi at her home. She thanks him for everything and says she looks forward to seeing him again. Then, as he leaves, Jinwoo reflects on the ordeal. Surprisingly, less than a day has passed since they were trapped in the gate, so he feels disappointed, having only earned a single dagger for all his trouble, and he concludes that Barca must have been far too high-level to yield better rewards. Looking back, Jinwoo remembers trying to raise Barca as an immortal soldier. Despite being given 3 attempts, he failed to extract him. Jinwoo takes solace in gaining Iron from the situation, but can't ignore the fact that it marks the 3rd time he has had to take human lives. The next day, Jinwoo meets Leo, but he's shocked by Leo's flashy and over-the-top attire. As they prepare for their mission, Jinwoo tells Leo that they need to pick someone up first. That someone turns out to be Songyi, much to Leo's surprise. Seeing how informal Jinwoo and Songyi are with each other, Leo grows suspicious. Then, when Jinwoo casually asks Songyi if she managed to get any sleep, Leo misinterprets the interaction. Worried about Jinwoo's intentions, Leo reminds him that Songyi is underage. Jinwoo brushes it off, clearly unaware of Leo's misunderstanding, which only fuels Leo's concern. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to not miss the next part.